Welcome, tennis fans, to the 40th episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, IVJ, and in today's episode, I will be analyzing the Roland Garros Draw and predicting the single tournament's winners. Before we begin, please follow all of my social medias, that is Instagram and Twitter, using @TennisTraverse, that is @TennisTraverse. If you are listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And I do want to mention just that my podcast, it was 2 weeks ago, I just remembered, it hit 500 listens. So, just on Spotify alone. So I'm really grateful, and I'm so thankful that you guys, like my podcast, and you guys want to hear more of me just blabbering about tennis. And I also want to say that because this is the 40th episode, I figured that this episode will be packed with a bunch of just stuff. I will be talking a lot. It might be the longest episode, well, apart from the episode with Ben Rothenberg, but this episode is going to be really long. So yeah, this is going to be a long one, and this because it's a prediction or the analyzing of the Roland Garros Draw. And I have a newsletter, so I will be posting my full analysis on the newsletter. And the newsletter is basically on Substack, and it will be sent to you via email every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And for this week's episode, it will include basically this draw analysis I did, and it's really, really specific. It have some of my thoughts, such as the top 3 contenders, some seeded players, some players to look out for, my favorites, good matchups, and some surprising upsets. And I decided to do this because I just felt like it couldn't get everyone, obviously, in this single episode. And sorry if you can hear my chair squeezing. I don't know what's wrong with that, but I have it, I annotated it on Notabilities, and I will be sharing it as a PDF. So if you guys haven't subscribed to me and you want to see my whole analysis, please make sure to just pause this episode right now, go to the show notes and subscribe to my newsletter. And if there isn't a huge event going on, I will be the newsletter will just be a brief sort of summarizing or a sneak peek into Monday's episode. So if you guys are interested in that, please consider subscribing. And yeah, let's just dive right into the draw analysis because there is a lot to talk about. Okay, I want to start off with the women's side first because I just feel it's more it's less messy, if that makes any sense. Every because I have 3 top contenders. Before the male side, I have a lot more, so I just want to start off with the women's side. So my top 3 contenders are Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, and Elena Rybakina. Okay, so I want to start off with the first quarter, and basically the format of this episode is just going to be breakdown of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and then I want to talk about the semifinal matchups and then the final, the potential final matchup. So I want to talk about the first round matchups in the first quarter first. So there are 2 that you guys, I feel should look out for. The first one is Danielle Collins versus Caroline Dolehide. So I feel Collins is going to go pretty deep in this tournament because she's having an amazing year. She's currently ranked number 10 in the world. She's still seeded 11th in this tournament, but I feel it is just an incredible matchup, and I feel you guys should be looking forward to how she plays. She's also one of the players that I feel you guys should just watch out, look out for in general, because she's been performing really well, even though she just lost the final to Madison Keys actually today. But I still feel she has the potential to go really far. For example, she has a potential opponent of Marta Kotyuk in the 3rd round, and I feel it's going to be upset, and I feel she does have the ability of beating some top players, so please watch out for her. And as of the seeds in this quarter, I have Iga Swiatek, which is the number 1 seed, and the number 5th seed, Marketa Vondrousova. So I do not have Vondrousova going really deep just because I feel she hasn't been performing really well apart from like her Wimbledon title a few years ago, I just don't feel like she has been on her A-level game, so to speak. I feel like maybe Wimbledon she'll peak again, but for now I just feel like she will lose to someone like Danielle Collins. And I guess this quarter is just really interesting because we have Iga Swiatek, who is obviously, in my opinion, or like in the general public's opinion, the top favorite to win this tournament. And I do think that she'll move out of this quarter with no problems at all, because I feel like the draw isn't too tough on her. But I still want to mention one person in this the whole quarter, which is Naomi Osaka. So okay, personal story time, guys. I was just eating lunch while like doing this draw analysis in school in the cafeteria, and then I saw Iga's name, and then obviously for the second round I put Swiatek's name like in the second round, and then the next like pair of matchup is Naomi Osaka versus Lucia Bronzetti, and I was like, okay, Osaka. And then I was like, wait a second, because Osaka is playing against Swiatek, because I just literally put her name above Osaka's. And then I was like, oh shoot, oh no. And then I called my mom, and yeah, I was freaking out. But I think regardless, this is going to be an incredible matchup. I'm really excited to see how Naomi plays against someone like Iga, because Iga is so dominating on clay, and I feel like if Naomi just manages to like play a close set or take one set away from Iga, I feel like it's just I feel like it will be a confidence boost, because she will know, like Naomi will know how she plays against like the top or like the best player currently on clay so far. So I feel like it's going to be a huge say, but I just want to point that out because she's like my favorite, obviously. And so for this first quarter, I have Iga coming out on top. Okay, let's move on to the second quarter. So the second quarter, the seeded players are Coco Gauff, which is the number 3rd seed, and Ons Jabeur, which is the number 8th seed. So this thing is similar to the first quarter. If you guys have the PDF document, then if you pull it out, you can see the highlights are basically like the exact same. And I want to point out that Coco Gauff, I feel like I didn't put her in the top 3 contenders because I feel like her forehand tends to break down, and because she's in the same half as Iga Swiatek. During the semifinals, I will talk about this later, but I think Iga is going to win without a problem. But there are a lot of players I feel like you guys should look out for. Just some to name, such as Helena Ostapenko and just Sofia Kenin. There are some like incredible round 1 matchups. So we have Ayla Tomjanovic versus Diana Yastremska. Well, Ayla received a wild card, so I'm like really interested in seeing how she will perform. And then we have Magdalena versus Lyudmila Samsonova. For me, I put exclamation mark next to it, which like if you're following me on newsletter, it means that it's an upset. So we'll see what happens. And then for Ostapenko, she's playing against, I had her going really far. I had her beating Ons Jabeur because I just felt like Ons, even though she's sort of like not peaking, but she's sort of finding her form recently for the past few weeks, but I just felt that she just wasn't as, like, she didn't get into any finals, and she just had a surprising loss in round 2 of Australian Open, so I don't really know how far she'll go. So I had Ostapenko beating her. And the bottom half of this quarter is also really fun because we have some potential like just round 2 matchups, round 3 or like further matchups. We have Ostapenko versus Kenin. We have Leylah Fernandez versus Ons Jabeur. We have Kenin versus Garcia. I have Kenin going further than Garcia because I just felt that, like, looking at their past record, Garcia just haven't been performing well, and it was a gut feeling. And I'm also really interested to see how Anisimova do because I feel like her playing style just suits really well on clay, and I feel like she's been bothered a lot with injuries for the past few seasons, but if she really puts in the work and just like manages her recovery well, I feel like this is going to be sort of she's going to go pretty far in this tournament. I have her losing in the third round against Bia Haddad-Maia. So I'm really sort of excited to see how this matchup will play out. So yeah, okay. And for this quarter, I have Coco Gauff coming out on top because honestly, I just felt like because as I said before, like it's sort of similar to the first quarter, which is like Iga coming out on top and the second seeded, well, like the fifth seeded player, but Josova, like I don't think she's performing that well. So it's the same thing with Ons Jabeur, so I have Gauff winning this quarter. Okay, now let's move on to the third quarter. So we have the number 7th seed Zheng Qinwen and the number 4th seed Rybakina. So I feel like Rybakina is going to dominate this quarter, even though there are a lot of good matchups. And I feel like, yeah, this is the quarter where I drew the most stars, I think, which is like in my like PDF, it's the good matchups. Okay. So this is a good matchup for it is Zheng Qinwen versus Alice Cornet. I believe that this is her last French Open, and this is a common theme. I feel like I do also want to I'll mention that later. It's about Dominic Thiem, but I'll mention that later. But I just feel like it's a common theme that a lot of players who are sort of like aging or retiring or are not performing as well as are retiring. And one example of this is Cornet. We have Zheng Qinwen versus Alice Cornet, and Cornet is capable of doing so many things. I remember her just putting an end to Iga Świątek's like winning streak at Wimbledon. So I feel like she is capable of beating Zheng Qinwen in the first round, so definitely look out for that. Still, I have Zheng Qinwen advancing because I feel like she's just younger, and I also believe that she plays really, really well on clay, so really excited to see what that will take us. And other matchups we have, for example, Daria Saville versus Jasmine Paolini. I just love Daria Saville just because of how like active she is on Twitter and stuff, and she seems to have such a nice personality, and Paolini too. And I have Paolini winning this, but there's just so many good matchups. Another matchup is Pliskova versus Svitolina. Pliskova is actually unseeded going into this tournament, which meant that she can draw anyone that is a seeded player, and she drew Svitolina. And I think this is really interesting, but I think Svitolina is going to advance. And I do have some players that in this quarter I think you guys should look out for. I already mentioned some of them, but the others are Kalinskaya. I have Kalinskaya and Paolini's a potential matchup in round 3. I think it might happen, and this will be their 4th time, I believe, or the 5th time that they played against each other this season. And I have Paolini advancing because I feel like Paolini's styles suits more on clay, and I feel like she's just been performing better. And yeah, there's just a lot of good matchups. The other player I guess I want to point out is Bianca Andreescu. Bianca is playing against Serbia's Tormel in the first round, and I think it will be an incredible matchup. I feel like the crowd is going to be really one-sided to the Spaniard, but I think it's still, regardless, going to be incredible. I haven't seen her play in such a long time. I don't know what to expect, but when she won US Open in, let me think, was it 2019? I don't remember, but I think it was 2019. I think I was surprised because I didn't expect her to beat Serena in 2 straight sets, and Serena was, I believe, one of her best forms ever, like after her pregnancy. So for her to beat Serena in 2 straight sets, I was like, whoa, this girl is amazing. However, soon after like all the injuries and stuff, I feel like she just haven't been obviously competing at such a high level again, but I'm really excited to see what this quarter will take us. And as I said before, I feel like Rybakina is going to dominate. I have Rybakina beating Paolini in the quarterfinals and her advancing to the semifinals. So I feel like this quarter is going to be dominated by Rybakina. Okay, moving on. We have the last quarter, and I think this quarter is actually maybe my favorite quarter. Actually, I'm not too sure. I like the third quarter, so I think the third quarter might be my favorite. but I think this whole half is better than the first half, but because there's just more matchups. So the top seeded players are the number 6 seed Maria Sakkari and the number 2nd seed Aryna Sabalenka. And I mean, I have Sabalenka and Sakkari going on in the quarterfinals, but I do want to mention some players that I think you guys should look out for. I have Mira Andreeva. I feel like she's going to go far, and I have a potential matchup in round 3, which is her versus Peyton Stearns, which is another player that I love. But I will talk about this later because I feel like there's just a lot more to talk about. So we'll move on first to Madison Keys. She just won a title on clay by beating Danielle Collins with a score of 6-1, 6-2, I believe. So to beat Collins, which Collins is just peaking right now, so to beat her with such a dominating score, I feel like says a lot about her and how she will perform at Roland Garros. So I have her going quite far as well. I have her beating her fellow American Emma Navarro and losing to Sabalenka in the 4th round. Okay, and then I want to talk about Badosa. So I feel like this is going to be an upset in the first round. So one of the matchup is Paula Badosa versus Katie Butler. I feel like just from the way I've seen Badosa play, if she's not injured, I feel like she can perform really, really well. And from the times I've seen her play without suffering an injury, I feel like she does have the ability to beat Katie Butler. And then we have a matchup which is Badosa versus Stephens. This is going to be incredible as well, so please be on the lookout for that. And for some first round matchups, I have Harriet Dard versus Linda Noskova. As I said before, Paula Badosa versus Katie Butler, Sloane Stephens versus Yulia Putintseva. So these are just some good matchups. And now I want to talk about Peyton Stearns. So she's actually amazing, I swear. She was down 0-5, 30-40, I believe, in the deciding set in the tournament. And she came back and won the whole freaking tournament. Sorry, I don't know. Okay. But that was crazy. And I feel like that's such a huge confidence boost for her because this is her first ever WTA title. And I was sort of bold with my predictions in this quarter, but I have her beating Kasatkina in the 2nd round. I just feel like she can do it. She's so confident. I love her confidence, and I just love her. I have her play against Andreeva in the 3rd round and her winning, but she will lose to Sakkari in my opinion. As I said this before, ever since Sakkari changed her coach, I feel like she's just competing at a higher level consistently, and I feel like she's going to be able to beat players that really are really confident, are really in top condition, but just because of how much experience Sakkari has, I feel like she's going to be able to beat Stearns. And then for the quarterfinal in this quarter, I have Sakkari and Sabalenka, and I have Sabalenka coming out on top. So let's move on to the semifinal matchups. So for the semifinal matchups, I have Swiatek versus Coco Gauff and Rybakina versus Sabalenka. So as you guys can see, this is basically the 1, 2, 3, 4 seed. But I feel like the women's side, everything will be sort of predicted. Well, I thought Australian Open was going to be sort of predicted too, but it wasn't. I mean, I honestly feel like it's just going to be how do I say it? It's either going to be just the top seeds it has been for the past few top 1,000 tournaments, or else it's just going to be completely unexpected. But I feel like Iga just have a really firm chance of securing herself a spot in the finals. And sorry, I just whacked my iPad, but okay. Semifinal matchups: Iga versus Coco Gauff. Iga Swiatek is going to win just because of their head-to-head record, and she's chasing her 3rd title in a row at Roland Garros. I feel like she's going to do it. The second semifinal, we have Rybakina versus Sabalenka. I feel like Rybakina's biggest enemy is just her her stomach disease issues, whatever. So I feel like if Elena is feeling well. I feel like she has the capability of even potentially beating Iga on clay. But I have Rybakina going through for the semifinals, and for the final matchup, I have Rybakina versus Swiatek. And I was thinking about it really, really hard. I was making I was looking at their head-to-head and everything, but I came up with a decision of making Iga the 2024 Roland Garros winner just because I feel like she's more comfortable on clay, and she's been there 2 times, 3 times, but Elena hasn't, even though she has one champion, she is a Grand Slam champion. But I feel like clay and grass are 2 completely different surfaces, and Iga just has more experience, and she's been playing a lot more of tournaments compared to Elena, so I feel like Iga is going to claim the title. Okay, that is a lot. That is the women's side. I'll come back shortly and overview the men's side. Okay, I just took a water break because honestly, this men's episode is going to be the segment is going to be even longer. And yeah, I'm ready to dive right in and talk about it with you guys. Okay, so this is going to be basically the same format as the women's side, and I want to talk about the top 4 contenders first. So notice that there's 4 instead of 3 because it's so open. It's never been this open before. Literally anyone, anyone can win. So I have Alexander Zverev, Jannik Sinner, Casper Ruud, and Carlos Alcaraz. Okay, so let's just go right into the first quarter. So the seeded players in the first quarter is Novak Djokovic, which is the number 1 seed, and Casper Ruud, which is the number 7th seed. So I didn't label my favorite quarters at all in the men's draw because it's all too good, guys. Okay, so this quarter we have Djokovic and Ruud, as I said before, and I feel like I was really bold in this quarter, but there are some just good matchups in the first round. I have Gael Monfils versus Thiago Seyboth Wild. They're both amazing. I feel like Monfils is going to advance though. And then I have Musetti, which there's a potential matchup between Musetti and Monfils in the second round. I have Musetti winning it because I feel like he's just younger and more athletic. Well, sorry, forgive me. They're both really athletic, and I don't think age is a thing for Monfils, but I just feel like from the way he plays, I feel like he's just more calm in a way. I don't know how to explain myself, but I just have a feeling Musetti's gonna win. And some other matchups, we have Thanasi Kokkinakis versus Alexei Popyrin. This is going to be incredible since they're both fellow Australians, so this is going to be amazing. And yeah, honestly, I feel like anyone can win. But some other players you guys should look out for include Tommy Paul, because he's been performing actually really well recently. He just went to a final, I believe, of a tournament, and he's just performing actually really well. And I feel like he might be a dark horse. And I have Taylor Fritz, well, of course, Clayler, so I feel like he's going to go far as well. But I feel like the reason I put Casper Ruud, well, he's my favorite, but the other reason why I put him going really, really far is because I honestly think he can do it. He just won a title in Geneva. He won a 500 title this season as well. I just feel like he can go really deep, guys. I genuinely think he can make it to the finals. So these are the matchups. For the 4th round, I have Djokovic versus Paul, and I was really bold in my prediction. In the PDF, you can see a question mark and exclamation point because I was not sure about this at all, because as Djokovic said himself, he's not the top contender for this tournament. So honestly, it's really different. So I have Paul winning it. And then the other 4th round match, I have Casper Ruud versus Taylor Fritz. I said Ruud is taking it. I feel like the adjustment that Ruud made over the season is to just make everything more aggressive. I feel like when I was watching him last season, he's more on the defensive side. Like, even though with a ball, it's like you can change the direction or attack, he's always trying to rally, and he always have to find like the perfect opportunity to attack. Like, even if the ball's just like not too short, he's not gonna attack. Only if the ball's like super short, he's gonna go for it. And sometimes it's not, it's like just more of a safe shot. But I feel like now Casper's more aggressive, and I love that because that's like the way sort of I play. I like to be more aggressive, so I'm really happy that he's like taking his chances, I guess. So for the 1/4 final, I have Ruud beating Paul, and then for the semi-final, the first semi-final contender is Casper Ruud. So I said that I feel like, as I said before, because of Casper's sort of more aggressive way of playing, I feel like he just has the ability now to beat seeded players, because before I wouldn't put Casper over Paul in situations like this, but I feel like he can do it now. Okay. This is the first quarter. There is a lot, and I feel like this quarter might be my favorite because of just how many people there are. But now let's move on to the second quarter. Surprisingly, there isn't that many upsets in the men's in the first round, but I mean, to be honest, anything can happen. I feel like I was playing it a bit safe, but I had a lot of trouble with the second quarter. Let me tell you guys the story. So obviously, the seeded players this quarter are Alexander Zverev, which is the number 4th seed, and Daniil Medvedev, which is the number 5th seed. So the story goes, I was just doing my Naomi Osaka draw in the cafeteria. I was looking and I saw Naomi's playing playing against Iga. I was like, oh wait, I was scared. And then I finished that one, so I was doing the men's one, and I saw Rafael Nadal versus Alexander Zverev. I was like, what? Because after that, I went on Twitter and I saw that he had a 50% chance of drawing either Alexander Zverev or Carlos Alcaraz. Like, huh? Thank God, like, he didn't draw Carlos Alcaraz, because I don't know how I've survived. But honestly, I was like really surprised, but this will be an incredible match. Please don't, like, no matter what you're doing, don't miss it. It's going to be incredible. I think I will be watching it the whole way without like doing anything. I'll just be watching because it's basically Rafa's like last ever Roland Garros. Well, he said not 100%, but it's almost 100%. So it's against Zverev too. So in my opinion, he doesn't have a high chance of winning, but as I said before, Rafa, like, he's capable of doing literally anything. So I wouldn't put all odds against him, but I still feel like he will come out a bit short, but I feel like it's just going to be an incredible match nonetheless. And bring up retirement, I want to talk about Dominic Thiem and like the wildcard decisions. This is like a brief sort of interjection, sorry, but basically, if you guys don't know, the tournaments, they often they are required to reward wildcards to players who can just like skip the qualifying and go straight to the main draw, and the players who are selected is solely dependent on the tournament. So the French Open, they decided to give like wildcards to like some random French teenagers who like haven't had no experience at all, instead of giving it to players like Dominic Thiem. And it is really sad because I feel like he deserved it. I feel like because this is his last season, I feel like he should be able to play in the main draw, right? Because it's his last season and he's done really well here. He's been in multiple finals, and he's like basically, before we used to see him play against Rafa and we're like, oh my gosh, like they're literally like Thiem is, I don't want to compare people, but they're like really, their spirit was similar in a way that they're both fighting towards the last point. And I just felt sad because he didn't make it past qualifying, and they threw him like a whole ceremony, but like why can't they just give him a wildcard spot? So I was kind of like puzzled about that. And I also want to mention Diego Schwartzman, who is again an incredible player, but lost in the qualifying, and he too didn't get a wild card. So I was kind of like, what is the wild card decisions? But oh well. Okay, let's move on. So this quarter, as I said before, we have Zverev and Medvedev, and Medvedev, as you guys know, isn't doing really well on clay, so he just haven't been doing well. So I feel like Zverev is going to dominate this quarter. And some round one matchups, there's actually a lot. Obviously, Rafael Nadal versus Alexander Zverev. I also have Nagal Summit versus Karen Khachanov. I also have Holger Rune versus Daniels Evans. I have Alex Michelsen versus Alex de Minaur. And I have Thomas Chalk versus Nuno Burgess. I think all of these matches are going to be phenomenal. And there's actually a lot, but if you guys want to see more, please consider subscribing to my newsletter. And I just want to talk about some players you guys should look out for. Obviously, Nadal. And then we have Rune. I don't think he's going to go super far, but I feel like his draw up to the third round is kind of easy. His fourth round opponent, which could be Zverev, won't be as easy. So I feel like he can go to the third round for sure. I have de Minaur beating Medvedev because, yeah, no explanations needed, honestly. I feel like de Minaur, he's been performing really well this season, and Medvedev just hasn't been performing well at all on clay, and it's going to be, I feel like, the same old story. Like, if he's able to beat de Minaur and make it like to the finals, then it is like a really good opportunity for him. And I think this is a great opportunity if he can just sort of play better on clay, just because the draw is so open that everyone can beat the winner. And yeah, these are some players you guys should look out for. And I have Zverev beating de Minaur in the quarterfinals, and I have Ruud versus Zverev for the first semifinal matchup. Okay, let's move on. I told you guys this is going to be a long one, but we're going to keep going for the second half. So for the second half, which is the quarter three, I have Andrei Rublev, which is number 6 seed, versus and the next seed is Carlos Alcaraz, which is the number 3rd seed. So this is going to be interesting. I don't have any upsets, but just some good matchups. Taro Daniel versus Andrei Rublev in the first round. Arthur Fils versus Matteo Arnaldi. Ugo Humbert versus Lorenzo Sonego. And we have Stefanos Tsitsipas versus Martin Fucsovics. So these are all just like amazing matches. And there are also some players that I feel like you guys should look out for that I feel like can make deep runs. So for example, Arthur Fils, he's been performing really well, and I feel like he's really talented on clay. So we'll see what happens. But I have him losing to Rublev in the third round. And then we have Stefanos Tsitsipas, who I have him going far but losing to Rublev in the fourth. I have Ben Shelton, and I have a potential matchup of Ben playing against Kei Nishikori in the second. And I also have him playing against Auger Aliassime in the third round, and I said that FAA is actually going to advance. I just feel like FAA has been performing well. He's been in the final despite obviously getting multiple withdrawals, but I feel like even though he got that many withdrawals, he just played really hard. I feel like with some confidence back in him, I feel like he has the power, he has the ability to make it really far. But I have him losing to Alcaraz in the fourth round. But I feel like Alcaraz and Rublev, obviously Alcaraz is going to win, even though he does have a arm injury. I think I said this before in the last episode where I did the whole overview. I said that basically Carlos has a arm injury. Jannik had a hip injury, but Jannik decided to play anyways. He said that his hip is not an issue anymore. So we'll be excited to see how Jannik does. Okay, let's just stay back on this. So I feel like Alcaraz is going to beat Rublev because anytime Rublev plays an opponent that's ranked higher than him, he just doesn't he's just not as dominant. But I mean, it's probably part of it is just mental, but I think he just needs to work on playing against top seeded players. Okay, moving on to the last quarter. The last quarter, we have the number 8 seed Humbert Hurkacz, the number 2nd seed Jannik Sinner. So this quarter, I basically have, there's actually 2 upsets. I want to talk about the upsets first. I have Cameron Norrie losing to Pavel Kotov. I don't know. I just had a feeling, and I feel like Norrie just hasn't been performing well on clay at all. And then we have Borna Coric versus Richard Gasquet. It really isn't like an upset because Coric isn't a seeded player anymore, but I feel like Gasquet, who came from qualifying, from wildcard, will beat Coric. And yeah, now I want to talk about some matchups in round 1. I have Zizo Bergs versus Alejandro Tabilo. And I want to talk about Tabilo later, but this is going to be incredible because the way Bergs play, it's sort of similar. No, sorry, I don't want to draw parallels, but he plays like he likes to fight for every ball, which I love, and he's just really committed. So I feel like this is going to be an incredible matchup. So is Tabilo, so I think this is going to be really good. And then the other matchup we have is, okay, this is like a good one, guys. Listen up. We have Andy Murray versus Stan Wawrinka. This is an incredible matchup. Like, both two are veterans, and they've been playing so many years. They're still sticking it out, and it's just really interesting that they drew each other. And I think Murray's going to come out on top because despite his injury, which was like devastating, I feel like prior to his injury, he's been performing sort of like not too bad. And Stan has been, on the other hand, playing a lot of challengers, and he hasn't had some significant results. So I feel like Andy is going to come out on top. And then we have Jannik Sinner versus Chris Eubanks. So honestly, I just highlighted it because of how I feel like entertaining it is. And to be honest, I just feel like Jannik is going to win. Sinner is going to win in straight sets. But I just want to point out that Chris Eubanks is playing against Jannik Sinner. Okay, and then we're moving on to some players that I think y'all should look out for. So we have Denis Shapovalov, and I feel like he's going to go far, not too far, but the reason I have him going kind of far and beating Tiafoe actually in the second round is because Tiafoe, first of all, hasn't been performing well, and Shapovalov, he has been, like, he had been through a lot of surgeries, but I feel like he just has the ability to go far, even though I get that he might feel a little bit nervousness because obviously he hasn't been at a high level in such a long time. And then we have Tabilo. So the reason we have Tabilo is because he actually beat Novak Djokovic and made it to, like, I believe the semifinals, and I was really excited for him in Rome Open, and I was like sort of excited for him, and I feel like not just me, I'm sort of a fan of his now, but like the public is waiting to see how he acts because anyone who beats like the top 4 will be like they will be looked at just because of like their achievement, and them beating the top 4 will just be a topic of conversation. I have Dimitrov because I truly have Dimitrov going really far, and I think he has the ability to go far. I have him going all the way to the semifinals, which is actually kind of insane with me. I didn't expect, I put him beating Jannik Sinner, which in hindsight might not be like a possibility if you guys consider it, but as I said before, Jannik is just coming out of a hip injury, so I don't know what might happen. And then I have Sebastian Baez. I think he's going to go really far as well. I feel like he is going to be a challenge for Sinner in the 4th round if he makes it there, and I think this match might wear Sinner down, which will maybe cause him to lose against Dimitrov. I have no idea, but yeah. Okay, and the last player I want to talk about is Murray. As I said before, both Murray and Wawrinka are just so inspirational, so please make sure to check that matchup out as well. And the second semifinal matchup, we have Alcaraz versus Dimitrov, and I think Alcaraz is going to come out on top. Pretty sure it's going to just be like a straight set, 3-0, 3-1 or something like that. But yeah, okay. So the first semifinal matchup was Casper Ruud and Zverev. I think Ruud is going to come out on top. I mean, Zverev did just win a title in Rome, but I feel like Ruud, I just have a feeling that he's going to win. I don't think it's biased at all. Maybe it is a little bit biased, but I feel like Casper has the ability to beat Alexander Zverev because I feel like he's just more comfortable on clay, even though Zverev is really comfortable on clay too, but I feel like Casper put a lot more work in, and comparing backhands, because I feel like that's one thing that set them apart. I feel like Casper's backhand is becoming more and more aggressive, which is something that sort of Zverev needs to work on. So I feel like this is something that's going to play a role later. And I have, as I said before, Alcaraz versus Dimitrov in the last doubles matchup, and I have Alcaraz coming out on top. So then the final matchup will be Alcaraz versus Casper Ruud. And for the final matchup, I handed the win to Carlos Alcaraz. I handed the win to Carlos, and I said that it will be a 5-set match because I honestly just feel like Carlos has the ability to win a Grand Slam, especially on clay, which is one of his best surface. And I feel like the arm injury in a way isn't as significant as the center hip injury, because if you compare the two, well, they're both significant injuries, but at least Carlos played, and Yannick, he just completely withdrew before ever playing. And I feel like Carlos, for example, for his arm, he can always choose to slice or whatever, but Yannick is actually his movement. And I feel like movement is such an important thing in tennis. If you play tennis, you'll know what I'm just talking about. It's so important to move your feet, but an injury in your hip can definitely disrupt that. So yeah, I have Carlos winning in 5, and yeah, okay. That's all. That's so much. I told you guys that this is going to be a long one, and it is. It is reaching the 42 minutes mark now, but I think I'll wrap it up. It's really good because it's my 40th episode, and it is 40 minutes. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed. If you guys want a reference to what I'm talking about and to follow my predictions, which I will be following as well, please go to the show notes and look at and subscribe so you guys can get the newsletter and download the PDF. And yeah, please follow all of my social medias if you haven't already. That is Instagram and Twitter using @TennisTraverse. That is @TennisTraverse. I will be more active now on Twitter for sure, because Roland Garros is starting, one of the big tournaments is starting, and I'll see you guys next time when actually we're getting into the halfway mark of the Roland Garros, which is crazy if you really think about it. And if you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. And if you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.